They taught us economics but left out the most important part. What they call growth is nothing more than debt repackaged and renamed. Governments grow through borrowing. Corporations gain value through borrowing. People survive through borrowing, and together they form an invisible pyramid, built on the shoulders of those at the bottom. But no pyramid can stand forever. One day, the flow of new money stops, and the story ends. How does that happen? Grab your tea or your coffee. Because today we are pulling back the curtain on the lie they call the economy, the logic of the pyramid. A pyramid scheme sounds complex, but it is brutally simple. The money from new participants is used to pay the old ones. There is no real production, only the illusion of progress. Charles Ponzi promised investors a 50% return in 90 days back in 1920. At first it worked. The early investors were paid with the money of those who came after them. But each new layer needed more people than the one before. And eventually, the system collapsed under its own weight. Today we are living through a similar design. The only difference is that this version looks legal. Governments borrow, corporations buy back their own shares, and ordinary people survive on credit cards. Money is no longer backed by gold, but by belief. And when that belief fades, the pyramid begins to crack in silence. The global economy. A legal pyramid. The system we live in today looks stable from the outside. It feels logical, even trustworthy. But deep down it follows the same pattern Charles Ponzi once built. Governments borrow trillions of dollars, stealing from the labor of generations not yet born. Corporations borrow money to buy back their own shares instead of creating real value. Shareholders grow richer, but the bill is handed to the future. Ordinary people live on credit card debt, paying interest just to stay afloat, while the amount they owe never really shrinks. At the center of all this stands one illusion: money. Once money was measured in gold. Now it is only a promise. Every time a bank gives a loan, new money is created from nothing. Every dollar and every euro is someone else's debt. Modern economies run not on production, but on belief. And when that belief breaks, the pyramid starts to shake. The magic trick of money. Fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking, the quiet magic trick behind modern money. When you deposit $1,000 in your bank, you might think it stays there, waiting for you. But the bank keeps only a small part, maybe 10%, and lends out the rest. That borrowed money is spent, deposited into another bank, and the cycle repeats. From a single $1,000 deposit, the system can create thousands of new dollars on paper. Everyone feels richer, but no new real value has been created. It's just layers of promises stacked on top of each other, a chain held together by one fragile thing: trust. As long as no one asks for their money all at once, the system works. But when that trust cracks, banks fall like dominoes. We've seen it before in 1929 and 2008. Every time the story is the same. Money exists because people believe it does, and when that belief fades, nothing remains. From the gold age to the age of faith, the system we live under today didn't appear overnight. Its roots reach back to the world rebuilt after World War II, to a deal known as the Bretton Woods Agreement. In 1944, the US dollar was tied to gold and other currencies were tied to the dollar. The entire world placed its trust in one thing: a dollar backed by gold. But as America spent more and more on wars, social programs, and trade deficits, its gold reserves began to run dry. Then, in 1971, President Richard Nixon closed the gold window. That moment changed everything. Money was no longer backed by gold, but by faith alone. Faith in governments, banks, and systems. For the first time in history, money became completely abstract, a symbol with no anchor in the physical world. From that day on, the system had to promise one thing to survive: endless growth. Growth through debt, through inflation, and ultimately through your labor. Because that's the oldest rule of every pyramid. The top can only stand if the base never stops working. The invisible demographic pyramid. Retirement and social security systems look solid on paper, but underneath they operate like a demographic pyramid. You work for years, they take a piece of your paycheck, and they tell you it's being saved for your future. But that money doesn't sit in a vault with your name on it. It's used to pay the pensions of those who are retired today. That worked when there were plenty of young workers. But now the balance is flipped. Birth rates are falling. People are living longer, and the base of the pyramid is shrinking. Japan is the clearest example. There are now more adult diapers sold than baby ones. It's not just a statistic. It's a warning of what's coming. Europe and the United States are following the same path. And governments keep turning to the same old solution: more debt, more money printing, more promises borrowed from the future. But the math is simple. If the base gets smaller, the top can't stand. And when that happens, the collapse won't just be financial, it will be social. Housing, finance, and crypto. Different stages of the same play. The housing market is the most dazzling face of the modern pyramid. Prices no longer reflect what homes are worth, but how much debt people are willing to take on. Banks lend more, prices climb higher, and the fear of missing out drives more buyers into the game. But when buying power runs out, the illusion fades. What we called value was really just the reflection of someone else's debt. Financial markets follow the same rhythm. Stocks don't rise on profits alone, but on the belief that someone will pay more tomorrow. And crypto? It's the same mindset in digital form. The early ones profit from the faith of the latecomers, and when that faith cracks, the wealth evaporates. But let's be honest, this isn't just about crypto. The whole system runs on the same equation. The only difference is that this time, it's perfectly legal. The master of the pyramid, the central bank. Whenever the system starts to crumble, the same rescuer appears, the central bank. In 2008, the housing bubble burst. Banks stood on the edge of collapse. Millions lost their jobs. And yet within months, the markets miraculously recovered. How? The Federal Reserve and other central banks printed trillions of dollars. They called it quantitative easing. But in truth, it was simple. Old debts were paid with new money. The system didn't collapse, it expanded. Losses were spread across the public, while profits stayed at the top. People were told the crisis was over, but it never really ended. The pyramid was just rebuilt, taller and heavier than before. We paid the price through inflation, through taxes, through the quiet erosion of our purchasing power. They saved the system, but we paid the bill. History repeats. The legacy of bubbles. History has shown us this pattern again and again, but humanity keeps forgetting. In 1720, the South Sea bubble swept through England. Thousands invested in dreams of riches from South American trade. But there were no ships, no trade, only promises. When those promises collapsed, so did their fortunes. Then came the Great Depression of the 1930s. It followed an era that people thought would never end, an age of endless growth and blind optimism. Banks failed, markets crashed, and millions were left with nothing. In the 1980s, Japan lived through one of history's biggest real estate bubbles. At one point, land in Tokyo was worth more than all of California combined. Then the bubble burst, and Japan entered its lost decade. Every time the story was the same: unlimited faith, unlimited debt, unlimited rise, until reality came knocking. Human memory is short. Each generation convinces itself that this time things are different, but it never is. We normalize the pyramid. The strangest part of all this is that we've stopped questioning it. We took the pyramid and called it the economy. We renamed debt as growth, inflation as progress, and dependency as stability. But deep down, the truth hasn't changed. The only way this system survives is by constantly creating more debt and more belief. If an economy can only stand when new people and new money keep entering the system, then it isn't a foundation, it's an illusion. And at the very bottom of that illusion, there's us. You, me, millions of workers and taxpayers. We are the invisible stones holding up the structure. We keep working, spending, and believing so that those at the top can keep standing. But if we ever stop, the system stops with us. Modern civilization has built something it doesn't dare to name, a faith built around money itself. And we, quietly, became its believers. Today's pyramid is bigger than ever. The pyramid standing before us now is the largest structure humanity has ever built. But it isn't made of stone, steel, or concrete. It's built out of debt. Global debt has passed $300 trillion. That's nearly 3 times the world's total annual production. Think about it. Before we even start creating new value, 3 years of humanity's labor are already owed. And still, the same words echo everywhere. A bit more growth, a bit more borrowing, as if the cure for the disease were the disease itself. Politicians, economists, central bankers, they all sing the same song. But we all know one simple truth. No pyramid can grow forever. When the flow of new money stops, the first cracks appear at the base. And who stands at the base? We do. Because when the system collapses, it's always those at the bottom who are crushed first. Inflation, the pyramid's silent tax. That's why inflation is the system's most dangerous weapon. It isn't a mistake, it's a feature. Every time there's a crisis, every time the system trembles, central banks step in and print more money. They call it stimulus or quantitative easing, but it's really just another way to keep the pyramid from collapsing. That new money doesn't create real wealth. It simply shifts value from the many to the few. The rich get saved first, the poor pay later, quietly, through rising prices. Your salary stays the same, but everything around you costs more. Your savings lose value, your effort buys less. No one calls it a tax, but that's exactly what it is, an invisible tax that keeps the pyramid alive. Every year, a little more of your wage, a little more of your savings, a little more of your future is quietly taken away. And when the system survives another year, it whispers to you, "We made it, but you paid the price." The demographic time bomb. Beneath this pyramid lies its quietest but most dangerous crack, demographics. Western pension systems are built on a simple idea. Young people work and pay in, while retirees receive their pensions. For decades, this balance held steady. But that world is gone. Birth rates are falling, people are living longer, and the base of the pyramid is shrinking. There are fewer workers to carry the growing top. Japan is the clearest example. The country now sells more adult diapers than baby ones. That's not just a statistic, it's a warning sign of what's coming. Europe and the United States are not far behind. And how do governments respond? By doing the same thing they always do. Borrowing more, printing more, and pushing today's problems into tomorrow. But math doesn't lie. If the base shrinks, the top eventually collapses. And this time the fall won't just be financial, it will be social. The addiction to rescue. The system's most dangerous habit is its addiction to rescue. Every time a crisis hits, the reaction is the same. Banks fail, confidence disappears, and governments rush in saying, "Don't worry, we're saving the system." But they never truly save it, they just delay the collapse and make it bigger. The Great Depression of 1929 was patched with the New Deal. The oil crisis of the 1970s was soothed by the petrodollar cycle. When the housing bubble burst in 2008, trillions were printed under the name of quantitative easing. And when the pandemic struck in 2020, we saw the largest bailout in history. Central banks flooded the markets, governments promised protection, and everyone felt rescued. But in truth, they weren't saving the people. They were saving the pyramid. Each bailout added another layer of debt. Each layer made the foundation weaker. Every rescue was not recovery, but postponement. Winners stay the same. Losers too. In this cycle, one thing never changes. The winners are always the same. And so are the losers. Just like in any Ponzi scheme, those who enter early, the ones at the top, walk away stronger after every collapse. Banks create money out of nothing and collect interest. Corporations borrow to buy back their own shares, inflate their stock prices, and reward their executives. Politicians play the hero, but all they do is charge the future for today's applause. And you, the worker, the taxpayer, the one trying to save and build a future, you stay at the bottom of the pyramid, The top gets richer, your paycheck stays the same, your savings lose value, your future is quietly mortgaged away. Wealth moves upward, risk moves downward, and somehow this imbalance is called normal. That's why the pyramid isn't just a metaphor. It's the most accurate picture of the world we live in today. Why the pyramid metaphor matters. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a mirror. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The global economy isn't standing by miracle, it's standing because governments hold powers that Charles Ponzi could only dream of. The power to print money, to collect taxes, and if needed, to start wars. But even with all that power, the logic never changes. Endless new money, endless belief, endless expansion. And no pyramid grows forever. No faith lasts forever. One day the flow of new money stops, trust begins to fade, and the system collapses under its own weight. When that day comes, no one will ask why. Because the answer was always there, we just chose not to look. True freedom begins outside the system. So what do you do after seeing all this? It's easy to believe the system will protect you, but here's the truth. The financial system doesn't exist to protect you. It exists to protect itself. Inflation, debt, bailouts. These aren't mistakes, they're features, they're how the system survives. But understanding this doesn't make you helpless. It makes you free. Real wealth isn't in the numbers this system promises. It's in what survives outside of it. In your skills, in your relationships, in the things you can touch and understand, in the values that hold their worth, even when trust collapses. Financial freedom doesn't start when governments rescue you. It starts when you understand the game. Because once you understand it, you stop falling for it. Freedom isn't about escape, it's about awareness. And once you wake up to that truth, no one can take it away from you. Final words. History rhymes. The global economy might not be a pyramid scheme by law, but in structure it's almost identical. It only stands as long as those at the bottom keep feeding it. And through every century, history whispers the same warning. When the base weakens, when trust fades, the fall is inevitable. History doesn't repeat word for word, but it always rhymes. Rome, London, New York, every empire played the same tune. Debt, faith, collapse. And when that day comes, numbers lose their meaning and only people remain. Because the collapse of this system will not begin with math, but with the loss of trust. One day, those who mistook the pyramid for a foundation will be buried beneath it. But the ones who saw it clearly will be the ones to rebuild. If this story gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. The answers are already written. I'm just here to show you where to look.